And essentially, although she did some quite interesting policy work and so on, her great gift was actually doing what we saw there, but moving that to scale. And the work she did in the action zone was really, really impressive. We were depriving our system of someone who was very, very good, And I think that happens here, You take someone, John's not here, so I can speak about him behind his back, outstanding school principal, right? Take him out and put him in the twilight zone of the regional office, right? Now, sure, John can contribute there, but, are we maximizing the benefit of John's skills by doing that? And this is just a hypothesis, all right? And I need to talk to Wayne about it next week. But what we're doing increasingly in England is to actually keep the Trish Fraineys and the Johns in their schools, right? Backfill behind them, but expect them then to be spending, a couple of days a week at least, outside, either supporting others, either taking over another school, either acting as a consultant or mentor to other principals, or what have you, right? Now, you can't just take them out. You have to backfill, right? And you have to change the role somewhat as well, hence the distributed leadership I was talking about, right? So there are cost implications here as well, obviously. But I think by doing that, one's getting the maximum benefit inside the system. Anyway, I'll just leave that with you as a thought. Are you happy to break for lunch now? Okay. So I've gone over a little bit. Let us reconvene at 1:30 on the spot, and then we'll try and just go on, do a few more things, and then finish about 3 o'clock if we can. When we were discussing this before lunch, and that is, it would be disingenuous of me to say this is all dead easy stuff to do. As you know better than I, it requires quite a lot of energy. I was saying to some colleagues over lunch that you've got to be, psychologically and physically in fairly good shape before sort of engaging on this type of journey. And particularly this sort of phase of the work here, these first couple of years, are not going to be that straightforward, and not going to be that easy. And you've got to sort of, although it is worthwhile to do, I just think it's there are some health warnings there. And we were having this debate yesterday with Trish, and she said, and I think this is a mistake which many really good heads make. She said, well, what I did was I made my school my hobby, right? And I said, and she said she implied that she expected the rest of the staff to do so as well, And I said, that way madness lies, right? It may be that you have to work pretty hard for a short period of time, but that shouldn't become the norm for you, and it certainly shouldn't become the norm for your staff, all right? Because although you want to keep a sort of you want to keep the pace going, you don't want to burn people out, and there's a sort of a real downside to establishing a hothouse culture inside a school. People do actually become quite turned off because you begin to inculcate a sense of guilt if you're not working. Do you know the emails? Everyone takes pride in sort of trying to get them after midnight. You know what I mean? That there becomes a sort of a competition about sort of who is working the hardest, and this sort of puts a sort of a false sense of guilt, I think, in the whole organisation. So there's a line there one's got to be very, very mindful of. Okay, well, what we want you to do now is to try and get into a way of trying to sort of pull together some of the discussion that we've had this morning. And, we've got what I want to try to do is to challenge you a little bit in terms of the discussion we've had, the examples we've seen, the discussion of your own practice, and to ask yourself, well, if there are differences between what we've been talking about and what you're doing, are there reasons for this? Do you need to be more consistent? Do we need to be more rigorous in tracking progress? What about the consistency of teaching? How much is involving student voice? And are you ambitious enough for your schools? And those are the sorts of questions I'd like you to reflect on now for a moment.